they're just not a good use of our time. We want to transform lives in all that we do, and that has become our vision statement.
So this is some of how we came to feel that real life transformation is what God had called us to. We feel it's more realistic. We feel it's more biblically sound. We feel it's more universal. I had a brother down in southern Utah years ago who came to me and said, I have set a vision of having at least one convert a week for the next year. To which I said, brother? But he had more papers hanging on the wall than I did, and he knew more than me, and so he went with his vision, and 12 months and 1 day later, he moved. We have to be realistic to where we are. And we believe that it's real life transformation. What does it mean? Genuine, real, genuine. It's genuine. We're not faking it. We're not pretending. There's genuine change that's taking place. Real life. It's got to be practical. It's something that works in the everyday. This has to work for us on Wednesday as easily as it works on Sunday. It's a change of not how I look in front of you, but who I am in front of Christ, and that will follow me through all week long. And transformation, genuine change of who I am into who He is.
The reality is that all of us have really messy lives, and all of us have a lot of battles and challenges. We're all people with broken places in our hearts and in our minds and the way we live life, and we need a place where we can be real and honest, because you can't get well unless you're honest and real. And so we want to be a place, a church, where the gospel is understood, that God accepts us when we turn to Him in repentance and faith. He just accepts us the way we're at. We don't have to clean ourselves up for Him. He accepts us in Christ. And to provide that safe place where we can be real and honest is the beginning of change. You can't do this without, you can't have change and transformation without experiencing His grace and His love. And so the aim of our church is to be a real place where you can be what you really are and honest and experience His grace and His love, so that you can then experience the transformation that He has for you by the power of His Spirit and through the gospel.
This is the prayer of Paul in Galatians 4. He said, I continue in anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. This is his goal in 2 Corinthians 3. We all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of God, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. This is the ongoing work of the Spirit. Now look, we can look at this and say, well, good, if it's about transformation, then I'll just go with transformation. I don't have to do all that witnessing stuff. How many of you have ever had difficulty, ever had fear, ever had frustration with witnessing? The rest of you ought to give it a try sometime. This does not mean that we don't have to witness. Oh, I'm out. I'll just seek to be changed. It'll just be me and Jesus at the house watching football yesterday. And no, it's not what it's about. Because the command in Matthew 28 is universal. All of us are to go. All of us are to preach the gospel. All of us are to disciple all nations. We cannot get out of that one. And frankly, I think that Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 4, do the work of an evangelist. I wonder if he told him that because it wasn't Timothy's natural gifting. We can sit back and say, well, I'm just not gifted to be an evangelist. I wonder if he wasn't. But Paul said, don't you forget. Now, don't you miss the responsibility. Do the work of an evangelist. And friends, what we're talking about is not an excuse out of evangelism. It is a foundation off of which to begin. God is doing a work in us, and because of that work, He will now move through us to minister to the lives of other people.
Yeah, so this call of real life transformation is for every one of us. All of us are to make disciples. All of us have a place. All of us know people that everybody else in this room don't know. And that is our place to be involved in His kingdom's work. And this transformation process involves the sharing of faith to people that don't know Jesus, coming to salvation through conversion, accepting Christ, becoming a new creature, growing in sanctification and becoming more like Him through years of reading His Word and fellowshipping and all the things God gives us, and then ultimately ending up perfect in His presence because of Christ on that day of glory. And this is all the transformation process that every one of us can be involved in as we work amongst people. And so we feel like it is a universal command that all of us can do and all of us can be involved in. That is the purpose of God's kingdom's work. Now, I know many years ago, actually, when we were in a different day, really, and 30 years ago or so, and had a dream of building a worship center out on this property out to the west that would hold 800 people. the conviction those people had, and it was a noble one, I think, was to grow a bigger church at that time here in Salt Lake City. In fact, they had a church vote to do this, and it passed by one vote in a congregation meeting. You can imagine that, 30 years ago, to actually purchase this property to build a large sanctuary out there. It's a cool piece of our history, and a very noble one, actually. Over the years, we have come to realize that probably that wasn't God's call on our life to go that direction. And so these days, we are aiming to be more multipliers. We call it real-life multiplication. And send people out from us and keep ourselves in a similar size and just multiply ourselves. And God has called us to do that. And in fact, just a few years ago, he brought Glenn Apgar into our worship service and amongst our church family, and he had the skill set to help work with that property. We were getting lots of calls from assisted living facilities asking if they could buy or lease our land, and we felt finally that was the knock of God to lease it, and we leased it, and Glenn did his work, and we ended up refurbishing this whole facility, and here we are today kind of in this place, and it's a great gift of God, and we're really thankful for it. But that's God working with us and shaping our vision and moving us as we go through life.
And as we look at the ground around us, we look at the environment we find ourselves in, and then we look at the tools that God has placed here, which is each one of us, we began to ask ourselves, is this really about growing a large church to fill an 800-seat auditorium, or is it about genuine change of who we are into the image of Christ, and then taking and planting churches in other parts of the city? And looking at what God had sent here, we felt that that was more realistic to not only what we do, but what he's given us. We don't tend to draw huge crowds, but we do tend to identify, equip, and release. That's what Kevin and I spend the vast majority of our time doing here in the week, is identifying people in ministry. What are they called to do? How are they equipped? A lot of people can come to us and say, I want to be the worship leader, but if you can't sing, I'm really sorry, you're not going to be the worship leader. We can help you unidentify, okay? I will never be a ballerina, and I'm okay with that. Kevin said I could be. He would wear a 1.5, 1.5. I would wear a 7.7. But we help people identify.
I would pay big money to see you do that, actually.
Then bring it on, baby. I will wear a 7.7.
Your wife's going,
No, I don't care. I'll wear it. Anyway, if it's got money. Oh, yeah, she's totally in favor of paying the big money. Anyway, identify, equip them to do what they're called to do, and then release them to do it. Go do it. Now look, come spend time with us, see what you like, take what you like, ignore what you don't. It's okay. We're not going to be offended. But let's get some work done. And in doing and having that attitude, in the past 5 years, we've been able to plant 4 churches, help 6 others, and we're praying now for another church planter so that we can have somebody else to just give life to. And how can we equip you and release you to go do this work?
You know, Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1 speaks of Nehemiah. And as you work your way through the chapter, we find at the end that he is a cupbearer to the king. Isn't that interesting? I mean, he's not a prophet. He's not a priest. He's not a king. He's not some uppity-up person. He's a cupbearer, for crying out loud, who God has placed in his heart a big vision. I find that so encouraging because it fits, I think, with us. I mean, we are not people that in our minds are like big personalities, but we are people that are like cupbearers. We are people that just want to be faithful to God. We are just people that just want to serve him and put our lives into other people that can go and do likewise. And so God has called us to this ministry of raising up leaders and putting our lives into them and helping them go and do likewise in other places. And it seems to fit us, and I think it fits this text, and I think it fits all of us, right? All of us can be a cupbearer and be used by God in a great way to do his kingdom's work. All of us have a call to do big things for God, even as a cupbearer.
And so what we've done is we've asked the 4 church planters that have come out of this house to do a short video. Those videos are going to be on the website these next 3 weeks. There's going to be one this week on how did you get your vision? Where did it come from? Next week it's going to be what do you plan to do to make that vision come to pass, to see God bring it to pass. And the third one is what do you need? How can we help? So look for those on the website. But here's an indicator. Here's an indicator of what it is that God might have called us to do. Look there in Nehemiah 1:4. It says, as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days, and I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. What moves you? What draws you to pray? What is it that just brings passion out of you? And listen, God calls us to serve in a place of passion. We think, well, Jonah and Nineveh, if I'm going to serve God, I'm going to have to go somewhere I hate. No, he's the exception. He's the exception. The vast majority of what we see in the Bible is God calling people to something that it's just in them. Well, what about Moses? He didn't want to go lead the people. Yeah, 40 years earlier, he had tried to deliver them in his own strength, and we see how that worked, right? So he's doing what God had already placed inside him. And what is it in you that gives you passion? The thing that you find yourself laboring and praying for is very frequently a good indicator of what God has called you to do.
And I like that Nehemiah's vision did come out of a time of prayer and intimacy with God. I think when we are walking intimately with Him through prayer and taking in His Word and fellowshipping with saints in close community, that God speaks to us that way. We need to be people of prayer. Spend time asking God, what are you calling me to do? What are you uniquely doing in my life? And out of that intimacy, He will lead us. And in Nehemiah's case, it came to, we need you to go rebuild the walls and lead the way in that. And it was something that he had to persevere in. He heard about it the third month of the civil calendar, that there was a problem in Jerusalem, and it wasn't until the 7th month until he had a time before the king, and then it was many days later before he actually got a chance to actually get out there and begin the work. But God had laid it on his heart, and it takes a spirit of perseverance and staying at it and working at it in order to accomplish the things God has called you to do.
I just had a picture of me walking in next week wearing a tutu. Sorry. That would be hysterical. So now I won't laugh while I'm reading this next passage. Anyway, what is it that sticks with you? What is it that has moved you for years? How many of you have trouble remembering what you went in the next room for? If it sticks with you for days, weeks, months, years, and still brings life to you, man, that's one of the ways that God lets us know what He's called us to do. And here's what He does. When we look in Nehemiah, the work began with a vision and a passion. Nehemiah had a vision, and then there was a deep passion in him that brought him to weeping and to prayer and fasting, and God, what can I do to be a part of this? And friends, we have been praying for years. Matthew 9, the end of the chapter, pray the Lord of the harvest. This is His harvest, it's not ours. Pray the Lord of the harvest. It says, send laborers into the field. When Jesus said that, there were more priests on the roll than there had ever been in Israel's history. He said, I don't need more priests, I need laborers. Pray the Lord of the harvest. He'll send laborers into the field. And you know what He did? The very next verse, those who had been praying are the ones that He sent out. Friends, we've been praying for years for laborers, and if you have come to this house in the last 11 years, you are an answer to that prayer. God has sent you here, and we receive you as His good gift. Now, what has He planted in you? What vision, what passion has He planted in you that He's brought to this place? And that's what helps us tweak to stay online. And dear God, please help us to stay on course with what He's called us to do in this house because of the tools that He has brought to here.
This way of thinking is underpinning to all that we do, that God is directing the ministry, and He directs the ministry through bringing certain people to do the work with us. And so we look around, who is God bringing? What is He doing by bringing people? And then that shapes how we do the ministry. We don't do the kind of more traditional role of we need this person, this person, this person, this person. Let's go out and find these people to fill these slots. No, who is God bringing? And then what do they do? And what is their passion? And then that's what God is calling us to do. And we found that to be really a much more powerful model of ministry in the church. And so we aim to listen to God, pray and ask Him to bring laborers, see who He brings, and then orient our ministry around the things and the people and the tools that God brings our way.
So it begins with vision and passion. Secondly, it is sustained by purpose. Nehemiah looked at him and said, look, we have a wall. This thing's falling apart. In Nehemiah chapter 2, 18, it's falling apart. We have